Here is the English translation of the given text. My name is Mike, and my life has always flowed along a clearly established course. Every morning I would wake up next to my wife, Catherine, have breakfast, kiss her goodbye, and go to work at the office. My position as a sales manager didn't imply any special surprises. Calls, meetings, reports. Routine. After work, I would return home. Catherine and I would have dinner, discussing the day that passed, and then we would sit in front of the TV or each do our own thing. On weekends, we would visit parents, go to the movies or to the park. In general, nothing unusual. My mother-in-law, Ellen, lived nearby and often visited us. We always got along well, although there was no particular closeness between us. The usual polite relationship between a son-in-law and a mother-in-law, nothing more. However, everything changed on the day when Ellen asked me to help her clean out the junk in the attic. Her husband, my father-in-law Robert, had recently passed away, and she decided to do a major cleaning in the house. "Mike, could you help me?" Ellen asked over the phone. "So many things have accumulated in the attic, and I'm no longer at the age to carry heavy stuff." "Of course, Ellen, no problem," I replied. "How about Saturday? I'll be free around 10. "Great, I'll be waiting for you." Her voice was filled with gratitude. On the appointed day, I arrived at Ellen's house. She was already waiting for me, dressed in an old t-shirt and jeans. We greeted each other and went up to the attic by the creaky stairs. When Ellen opened the door, a true cluttered space appeared before our eyes. Boxes, suitcases, some incomprehensible bundles. Everything was covered with a thick layer of dust. I involuntarily sneezed. "Well, there's a lot of work to be done here," Ellen chuckled, looking at the bedlam. "Well, let's get started. You open the window for now, and I'll start sorting out those boxes in the corner." I nodded and got to work. We worked in silence, sorting things into 3 piles. What to keep, what to give to charity, and obvious trash. Each of us was immersed in our own thoughts. After half an hour, Ellen suddenly called out to me, "Mike, come here. I think I found something interesting." I approached her and saw that she was holding an old, battered photo album in a leather binding. "I haven't seen these photos in a long time," Ellen said with nostalgia in her voice, opening the album. "Want to take a look?" And we immersed ourselves in the past that forever changed our present. Ellen and I sat down on an old couch that had clearly seen better days and started studying the photographs. Black and white in color, they were like windows into the past. Young and carefree faces, relaxed smiles, frozen moments of someone's lives. "Look, this is me in my youth," Ellen said with a smile, pointing to a photo where a pretty girl in a flowery dress posed against the background of an amusement park. "I was only 18 then. God, how long ago that was!" I took a closer look at the photo. Ellen was indeed very good-looking, slender, with mischievous eyes and a perky smile. It was hard to believe that this young beauty and my mother-in-law were the same person. We continued flipping through the album, immersing ourselves deeper into the whirlpool of memories with each page. Here are Ellen and Robert at their wedding. Here is their firstborn Catherine taking her first steps. And here are the grown children frolicking in the backyard of the house. "You and Robert were a beautiful couple," I remarked, looking at their photo together. Ellen, in a white dress and veil, was glowing with happiness, and Robert, stately and fit in his suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. "Yes, we loved each other," Ellen said quietly. "You know, I still miss him. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is reach out to his side of the bed, but it's empty." I saw her eyes glisten with rising tears, and I mechanically covered her hand with mine. "I'm sorry, Ellen. I understand what it's like to lose a loved one. And I really did understand, because I myself had once experienced something similar, although I never told anyone about it. Even Catherine didn't know that in my youth I had a girlfriend whom I loved more than life itself, and whom I lost due to a silly quarrel." Ellen and I sat in silence, each immersed in our own thoughts. But this silence was not awkward. Rather, it was imbued with mutual understanding and compassion, as if we both realized that we had much more in common than it might seem at first glance. Finally, Ellen put the album aside and gently squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Mike, for listening and supporting me. I didn't think simple photos could evoke so many emotions." "You're always welcome," I replied sincerely. "You know, I think sometimes it's good to remember the past. It reminds us of what's really important in life. Ellen nodded, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. And then she reached for another box, and our cleaning continued. But the atmosphere between us had already changed. It became more trusting and warm. And I had no idea that this was just the beginning. After the photo album story, Ellen and I continued sorting through things. But now we did it not in silence, but while chatting casually. Every new find, whether it was old letters, faded jewelry, or forgotten children's toys, served as an occasion for another story. Ellen turned out to be a great storyteller. With genuine feeling and light humor, she shared stories of her life, about her childhood in a small town, about her student years full of adventures, about her first job and meeting Robert. And so I stand there, all dressed up, and he's half an hour late. Ellen recalled their first date with laughter. I was just about to leave when he runs up out of breath with a huge bouquet of roses. It turns out that on the way to my house, he saw a flower shop and decided to buy flowers, and there was such a long line. Isn't that romantic? I smiled, listening to these stories and imagining the young Robert and Ellen, in love, daring, full of hopes and plans for the future. And I also caught myself thinking that I had never talked so heartily with my wife. Our conversations usually revolved around mundane topics and rarely touched on anything personal. At some point, Ellen fell silent, lost in thought. I looked at her and saw that she was holding a small velvet box in her hands. "Everything okay?" I asked softly. "Yes, I just remembered something," she replied with a slight sadness in her voice. "You know, Robert wasn't my first love." Ellen opened the box and I saw a thin gold ring with a small ruby. "David gave this to me when we got engaged," she said, stroking the ring with her fingertips. "We dated in college and were sure we would get married, but then I went on an internship to another city and he didn't wait for me." I saw her eyes moisten and felt a sharp pang of compassion. Moving closer, I gently put my arm around Ellen's shoulders. "I'm so sorry, Ellen. I understand how hard it is to lose loved ones." "You know, now I understand that everything happened for the best back then," she said after a short silence. "If it weren't for the breakup with David, I would never have met Robert and lived a happy life with him. So I guess there's no point in regretting the past. You just need to appreciate what you have here and now." I was struck by the wisdom of these words. I suddenly realized clearly that in recent years I had only been regretting missed opportunities instead of rejoicing in what I had. "You're an amazing woman, Ellen," I blurted out. "Robert was a lucky man to have met you." She smiled gratefully through her tears and leaned against me. I hugged her tighter, feeling the warmth emanating from her and a strange excitement in my chest. And at that moment, I had no idea that this excitement would soon grow into something more, into something that would change my life forever. After that conversation, Ellen and I dove into cleaning with renewed vigor. Despite the memories that were stirred up, the atmosphere between us remained light and relaxed. We continued to chat and joke like old good friends. A couple of hours later, the main part of the work was finished. We stood in the middle of the attic looking at the fruits of our labor. Neat stacks of books and folders, boxes with sorted things, freed up space. "Phew, I didn't think we would manage so quickly," Ellen said contentedly, wiping drops of sweat from her forehead. "Thank you so much, Mike. Without your help, I would have been here until night." "You're welcome," I smiled. "I'm glad I could help. Besides, it wasn't just cleaning, but a real journey into the past. Thank you for sharing your memories with me." "You know, it was nice to talk to you about all this," Ellen admitted, looking into my eyes. "I suddenly realized that in all these years we never really communicated, and you're an amazing person, Mike." Her words and gaze suddenly took my breath away. I looked at Ellen and saw not just a mother-in-law, but an attractive, intelligent, amazing woman. A woman with whom I felt so easy and good. I don't know what came over me at that moment. Probably it was the emotions from the heartfelt conversations, from the surge of memories and the feeling of a special closeness. I suddenly stepped towards Ellen and, taking her face in my hands, kissed her. It was an impulsive, almost weightless kiss, a light touch of the lips that lasted only a couple of seconds. But as soon as we pulled away from each other, I realized what I had done. What have I done? I just kissed my wife's mother, a woman old enough to be my own mother. What an idiot I am. "Ellen, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." I mumbled, feeling the color of shame flooding my face. Please forget about this, But I didn't have time to finish, because the next moment, Ellen herself reached out to me and covered my lips with hers. This was no longer a timid kiss, but a real, passionate, and deep one. For a moment I was taken aback, but then responded with no less fervor, pressing her against me. The whole world around us ceased to exist. There were only the two of us, gripped by some kind of crazy, almost animal passion. We kissed frantically, feverishly, as if for the last time. Hands wandered over each other's bodies, crumpling clothes, caressing and being caressed. I don't know how it would have ended if it weren't for the old sofa creaking under our weight. This sound seemed to pull us out of the love days, brought us back to reality. We simultaneously recoiled from each other, breathing heavily and staring wide-eyed. "God, what are we doing?" Ellen mumbled, hurriedly pulling down her hitched-up t-shirt. "Mike, we can't. This is wrong." I understood that she was right. What just happened was pure madness. An affair with my mother-in-law? I must be out of my mind. I have a wife, after all. "Yes, you're right," I muttered, looking away. "I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. Let's just forget about it, okay? I need to go home." "Of course," Ellen nodded, nervously fixing her hair. "Thank you again for your help. See you sometime?" I retreated from the attic, hurrying to leave as soon as possible. All the way home I cursed myself, my lack of restraint, and my stupidity. What kind of demon possessed me? To succumb to a momentary attraction, and with my own mother-in-law at that. "This won't happen again," I firmly told myself, parking my car at my house. "I just need to pretend that nothing happened and move on. After all, who doesn't make mistakes?" If only I knew how wrong I was, and what consequences that ill-fated kiss would have. For the next few days, I lived on pins and needles. I constantly replayed that episode in the attic in my head, our kisses with Ellen, and felt both shame and a strange longing. I avoided any contact with my mother-in-law, cowardly pretending to be terribly busy at work. Catherine, of course, noticed my strange state. A couple of times she tried to find out what was going on if I had a fight with my boss or colleagues. I made excuses, citing fatigue and stress due to workload, and each time I hated myself for lying to my beloved wife. A week later, the phone rang. It was Ellen. Hearing her voice, I froze with excitement and fear. "Mike, we need to talk," she said quietly. "I can't stop thinking about what happened. Please, let's meet." I tried to refuse, to refer to my busyness, but in the end, I gave in. Deep down, I myself understood that we needed to clarify everything and dot the I's. We met in a small park on the outskirts of the city, away from prying eyes. Ellen was sitting on a bench, nervously fiddling with her purse. When she saw me, she raised her eyes, full of confusion and guilt. "Mike, I don't know what came over me then," she began in a faltering voice. "I guess I just got too emotional from all those memories. Please forgive me." "No, it's you who should forgive me," I objected, sitting down next to her. "After all, I was the one who kissed you first. I don't understand what happened to me, but what happened, it shouldn't have happened, Ellen. I love Catherine and I can't hurt her like that." "I know," Ellen nodded, and tears glistened in her eyes. "I also love my daughter and don't want to destroy your family. Let's just forget about everything, okay? Let's pretend that nothing happened." I silently nodded, feeling a huge relief. Yes, it would be better for everyone this way. We just need to erase what happened from our memory and move on. That's what we decided. We exchanged a couple more phrases, said goodbye awkwardly, and went our separate ways. But here's the weird thing. Despite the decision we made, I felt uneasy in my soul, as if I had missed something important, betrayed myself. In the following weeks, Ellen and I pretended that everything was fine. We occasionally saw each other at family dinners, communicated politely, but avoided being alone. Catherine seemed to feel the change in our relationship, but didn't ask about anything. But more and more often, I found myself thinking about that day in the attic. I remembered our conversations, that amazing feeling of closeness and kinship of souls. And why hide it, our kiss, and the frenzied passion that possessed us? Did I really imagine all this? Is there really nothing between us? I thought about all this for a long time, trying to understand my feelings, and finally, I made up my mind. One evening, when Catherine went to yoga, I sat down and wrote a letter to Ellen. I wrote for a long time, carefully choosing my words. I wrote about how much that day in the attic means to me, how grateful I am to her for her trust, support, and understanding, and how all this time I had been deceiving myself, pretending that nothing had happened between us. But in fact, I was simply afraid of my feelings for her. Ellen, I don't know what will happen next, I wrote at the end. I'm confused, and I can't give any guarantees, but I do know that I don't want to give up what has arisen between us. I want to give us a chance, despite everything. If you want this too, let me know. After sealing the letter, I went to Ellen's. Waiting for her to leave the house on an errand, I slipped the envelope under the door. And then I left, feeling a strange mixture of fear, hope, and relief. What will happen next? I don't know. Maybe I made the biggest mistake of my life, or maybe I took the first step towards my happiness. One thing is clear. There's no way back. I have confessed my feelings, and now everything depends on Ellen. Perhaps she won't answer my letter. Perhaps she will politely refuse, saying that there can be nothing between us. And then I will have to come to terms with it and live on, carrying in my heart the longing for the unfulfilled. Or maybe she feels something special for me too. And then we have a difficult path ahead of us, full of doubts, fears, and the fight against prejudice. Will we be able to risk everything for our love? Will we be able to overcome the condemnation of society and forgive ourselves for the pain caused to our loved ones? I don't know the answer. Ahead lies uncertainty, full of hopes and fears. But I do know that the time for cowardice and self-deception has passed. It's time to face my true feelings and desires, and come what may. Because it's better to take a risk and lose than to spend your whole life regretting a missed chance. Regretting the one who could have become the love of your life. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.